Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Tea, Coffee, and Torah. This is episode 12, and I am so happy to have you with me. We have been working now for about a week in Isaiah 66. And this study has really been something that I have grown from. It is something I have learned from, and it has been very enjoyable for me, and I hope it is for you as well. And again, coffee is for the win again this morning. I have to admit, I've almost finished my cup of coffee because I did not get much sleep last night. I am still busy moving in and busy doing a lot of things. So anyways, I hope you are having a great week and you're getting ready for the weekend, getting ready for Shabbat. And I'm so glad to have you with me here this morning. I know your time is very valuable. Historical context really changes how we understand Scripture. Now, this week we've discovered that in Isaiah 66, in verse 3 and 4, that Isaiah is actually tackling head on a Canaanite, left over from the Hittites, but a Canaanite ritual for cleansing from defeat. But what I want to focus on now is going to be the subject of the temple. In modern scholarship, among academics and even among religious-oriented people, the idea of a temple, period, has really come under fire, and it has been very, very well criticized. Isaiah 66, verse 1, is one of those texts that is used to criticize the temple in Jerusalem. So let's delve right into the text, and we're going to kind of see where Isaiah is coming from with this. So Isaiah 66 verse 1 states, "Thus says Yahweh, the heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. Where," here's the emphasis, "where is the house that you will build to me? And where is the place of my rest?" Now, usually, I have found that whether we're looking at Isaiah, Micah, Hosea, Jeremiah, every single prophet uses scholarship. So they will quote from their predecessors, they will quote from the Torah, and they will also quote from the Psalms. So Isaiah cannot quote from Jeremiah because Jeremiah did not live till almost 100 years after Isaiah. So it's very, very important to know when the prophets lived. And if you're interested, I do have on academia.edu, I do have a prophets and kings chart. I've actually have a revised one that's kind of from my volume 1 book that breaks it down a little bit better and shows you exactly when the prophets lived and who they would have quoted from. And that really allows us to have a very clear and concise understanding for where the frame of reference. So in Isaiah 66 verse 1, it's not surprising that Isaiah is actually quoting from Psalms. And this psalm probably would have been very well known. It would probably been something that would have been sung in the temple and something that people would have known. So when they heard Isaiah's question, it wouldn't have been something that was just out of the blue, where are you coming from? It would have been something that resonated with the people. So this is what Isaiah is quoting from. It's going to be Psalms 132 verse 14. It says, "Yahweh has chosen Zion and desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever. Here is where I will dwell, because I have desired it." So when Isaiah is asking, where is the house that you built unto me, or you will build unto me? Where is my resting place? He's referring to Zion, the place that Yahweh chose to place his name within Jerusalem, and the place where he has rested. As a matter of fact, verse 8 of Psalms 132 uses this exact same Hebrew word for rest, menachiti, for the idea of rest, and builds on the same concepts. So Isaiah is not just coming out of the blue with this, but the emphasis in this verse really is where. And the reason for this, and this again, unless we step back in time and say, here, let's say I'm an Israelite, what is going on around me? What is Isaiah addressing? Well, during the time of Ahaz, which would have been right before Hezekiah, the high places really came into preeminence. The high places, and they competed with the temple in Jerusalem, which we're going to see a little bit more in the forthcoming episodes. All of these temples were places where they would combine the worship of Yahweh, so that you had a pure strand in it, but then they would adulterate it with maybe Yahweh and Asherah, or Yahweh and Baal, or Yahweh, Baal, and Asherah. So you would have all this combination of the gods into this one place to kind of meet the needs of all people. We could call it a very ecumenical approach to religion, a very a religion that did not take sides because you tried to cover all your bases. But this is something throughout Scripture that is very heavily criticized. And when Isaiah says where, he is asking, okay, you have all these other cultic sites. Where is the place of my dwelling? Where is the place where I rest and where I set my name? Where is my footstool? And he answers this because most Judeans would have known, or Judahites would have known that is a reference to the temple in Jerusalem. And in verse 6, this really drives the point home. Isaiah drives the point home. It says, a noise is heard from the city, a voice from the temple, a voice of Yahweh that renders a recompense to his enemies. Now, if Isaiah were really criticizing the temple in Jerusalem, saying it's a profane place, Yahweh never sanctioned it, he would not then turn around and say that Yahweh's voice is coming from this temple. So we have a dichotomy here. Either, is something that Yahweh has sanctioned. It's a place where he dwells because that's where his voice would naturally come from, or it isn't. You really can't have it both ways. And then when you go down to, say, verses 11, 12, and 13, there is a prophecy regarding the temple becoming this place, this oasis. It becomes a place of consolation, a place of glory. And then in verse 12, let me read you this. It says, for thus says Yahweh, behold, I will extend peace like a river, and glory to the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then shall they suck, and you shall be borne upon her sides, and be dandied upon her knees. This is King James Version. I tend to stick with it just because it's well known. Not that it's the best translation, but it works. It says, as one who comforts his mother, so I will comfort you, and you will be comforted in Jerusalem. Now, if Isaiah were attacking and criticizing the temple in Jerusalem as a legitimate place, he would not then be condoning and saying that you will be comforted in Jerusalem. And as a matter of fact, if we go back to verse 10, Isaiah states that you will rejoice with Jerusalem. You will be glad with her, you that love her, and you will rejoice with her, all that mourn for her. So there is this exaltation of Jerusalem as a place, as the seat of capital. It could be similar to the way that in the United States we extol Washington, D.C., or we used to, perhaps some of us, as a place and a seat of justice, of judgment, where legislation occurs, where righteousness and justice should take place in the governance of a people. And that is what Isaiah is doing here. So we don't see him criticizing the temple of Jerusalem. We actually see him extolling it. We have a voice that comes from the temple. We have a future prophecy saying that people will rejoice with it. And we have this prophecy that peace and comfort will be coming. And those ideas are not likely to be associated with somebody who is outright condoning or condemning the temple in Jerusalem as a legitimate place for Yahweh worship. But what we do find is this emphasis on where. Where is the place of Yahweh's dwelling? And what we're going to find in our next episode is that there were competing sites that Levites were serving, and competing sites where they were actually profaning the name of Yahweh. These are Levites themselves, and they were ascribing all sorts of pagan rituals to Yahweh. And this is why Isaiah addresses it in Isaiah 66, verses 3 and 4, because these pagan rituals were part of the Yahweh cult outside of Jerusalem. And very likely a lot of that had infiltrated into Jerusalem before the reign of King Hezekiah. And what we're going to see in our next episode is how King Hezekiah tackled those profanations and how he cleansed the worship of Yahweh and made it something that was pure, righteous, and holy again. So I hope you'll join me next time. We are going to delve into some of the scholarly opinion on this, and kind of see where scholars align with the text and kind of where they go off on their own. So I hope you'll join me next time for another episode of Tea, Coffee, and Torah. I have really enjoyed these episodes with you, and I thank you for sharing your morning with me. Have a fantastic weekend.